Now, as promised, the news in detail. We begin in Chad, where Boko Haram has killed 92 soldiers in an attack on a military base in the western Lak province. Officials say 42 others have been wounded in the raid, while militants destroyed 24 army vehicles. President Idris Deby says it was the deadliest attack in the country that lasted for around 7 hours. Officials say terrorists captured military arms and eloped in speedboats. Boko Haram's insurgency began in 2009 in northeastern Nigeria and has spread to neighboring Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. A UN report says Boko Haram terrorists have killed over 30,000 people in a decade. In Nigeria, at least 70 soldiers have been killed in a militant ambush in the northeastern state of Borno. Security officials said several soldiers were wounded in the attack carried out by Boko Haram. Military spokesman Sagir Musa confirmed the attack but disputed the number of casualties. He said militants targeted a truck of soldiers with RPGs and torched the vehicle, killing all on board. In Libya, General Khalifa Haftar's eastern forces have wounded 6 people after shelling a prison in the capital Tripoli. The UN-recognized government of national accord said Haftar's forces attacked the Al-Ruwaimi prison in Ain Zara town. Libya's justice ministry says 420 inmates are imprisoned at the targeted site. It said Haftar's forces carried out the attack on Ain Zara for the 4th consecutive day. The ministry called on the international community to immediately intervene to stop rocket attacks in the region. The UN mission in Libya has condemned the repeated shelling of Ain Zara neighborhoods. Libya has been torn apart by a civil war between the GNA and Libyan National Army since April last year. In Kabul, a child has been killed and 15 others wounded after ISIS gunmen and suicide bombers stormed a Sikh religious complex. The terrorist group ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack. The Interior Ministry said Afghan security forces killed 2 of the attackers as forces are still engaging with them. Afghan Sikh lawmaker Narendra Singh Khalsa said up to 200 people were trapped inside the temple. The Member of Parliament told media 3 suicide bombers entered a dharamsala in early morning attack. He said the dharamsala was full of worshippers when the gunmen attacked. Pakistan has strongly condemned the terrorist attack. In a statement, the Foreign Office spokesman said all places of worship are sacrosanct and their sanctity must be respected at all times. The negotiating teams of Taliban, Kabul, US, and Qatar will hold a second round of talks in Doha today. Taliban spokesperson Sohail Shaheen says the release of 5,000 prisoners under the Doha peace deal is on top of the agenda of the video conference. The prisoner swap was scheduled to happen at the beginning of March, but political uncertainty in Kabul has derailed the process. Earlier this week, the Taliban and Kabul discussed the same issue in a meeting, the first interaction between the two sides since February 29th. After the first discussion, U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad said prisoners released by both sides would be an important step in the peace process. He said all sides conveyed their commitment to a reduction in violence, intra-Afghan talks, and a permanent ceasefire. The World Health Organization has warned the U.S. is at risk of becoming the next epicenter of the new coronavirus pandemic. The number of infection cases across the U.S. has surged to almost 55,000, with nearly 800 deaths. As the global death toll jumps to nearly 19,000 and infections increase to over 422,000, India has locked down 1.3 billion people for 21 days. More on that now in this report.
With around 3 billion people confined to their homes, the spread of the fatal new coronavirus is accelerating, infecting another 100,000 over in just 2 days. France has become the 5th country to cross 1,000 coronavirus deaths threshold after China, Italy, Iran, and Spain. Meanwhile, South Korea has imposed strict border checks on visitors from Europe, China, Italy, and Iran. Australia has also announced a new corporate task force focusing on redeploying workers and equipment and seeks to protect critical supply chains during the pandemic.
That's why today I'm announcing the establishment of a National COVID-19 Coordination Commission. That commission's job, put simply, is to solve problems. Problems that require the private sector working together with the private sector. CEOs to talk to CEOs and to be engaged with by CEOs.
To treat patients, medical workers in China have been using extracorporeal membrane oxygenation machines to treat critical patients. Doctors and medics from US, UK, and Germany held an online meeting with their Chinese counterparts.
We are very glad to share our frontline experience, which we have gained by artists' efforts without counterparts overseas to help them learn more about the disease and how to treat critically ill patients, so that they can quickly adapt to the situation and take timely and effective measures in the treatment.
China revealed that the number of silent carriers showing no symptoms could be as high as 30%, higher and above from WHO's estimates.
Well, coronavirus infections across Pakistan have reached 1,000, with 7 deaths so far. The provincial governments of Sindh, Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan have ordered a shutdown to contain the spread. Pakistan's Ministry of Health Services says 19 people have recovered from the virus. The ministry reported 28 cases over the last 24 hours, with 5 patients in critical condition. The data shows 413 infections in Sindh, 296 in Punjab, and 115 in Balochistan. In KP province, 78 people have been infected. In Gilgit-Baltistan, 81, while the capital city Islamabad has reported 16 cases so far. Prime Minister Imran Khan, meanwhile, has unveiled a financial package of $7.5 billion to curb the impact of coronavirus. The economic package includes relief for industries, laborers, and a cut in oil prices and interest rates. Funds have also been allocated for health facilities and utility stores. In India, panic has spread after Prime Minister Narendra Modi suddenly announced a 21-day-long curfew amid coronavirus. Violating his own government's curfew, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath held a religious event at a local temple. Indians crowded grocery stores and chemists in a struggle for essential items to survive one of the toughest such measures worldwide. People in key cities of Delhi and Mumbai rushed to stock up after Modi decreed the shutdown barely 4 hours before it took effect. As states shut their borders, long queues of trucks carrying milk, fruits, and vegetables snaked down highways. Online companies, including Flipkart and Amazon India, also shut down their services, increasing people's woes. The Indian government took the step after the death toll reached to 12 and infections rose to over 530 across the country. Business activities across the world have collapsed as more and more countries go into lockdown.
According to business media group IHS Markit, Eurozone's Purchasing Managers Index plummeted to a record low at about 31.5 in March. In France, services activity fell to a record low and manufacturing saw its steepest drop since 2008's global financial crisis. Meanwhile, China's fiscal revenue dropped about 10% year-on-year in the first 2 months of 2020. China's fiscal spending also dropped about 3% year-on-year despite a surge in health expenditure to fight the pandemic. Deepening economic uncertainty is weighing heavily on local currency bond markets of emerging East Asian economies. Asian Development Bank said foreign investment and sector activities are on the downside, coupled with ongoing trade issues. The bank said the uncertainty has resulted in record equity market losses in the region, has weakened currencies against the US dollar, and widened credit default swap spreads.
Well, Syria has accused Turkey-backed rebels of violating the IDLIB ceasefire agreement between Ankara and Moscow. State media said the rebels fired several rocket shells and sniper bullets in the northwestern region. It said rebel forces breached the cessation of hostilities agreement. State media said military units responded to the fire sources, causing casualties among the rebels. The U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, meanwhile, have agreed to establish a ceasefire amid the coronavirus pandemic. The Kurd forces said all parties of the Syrian conflict should support the initiative of UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres for a universal ceasefire. On Monday, Guterres called on the international community to stop all conflicts around the globe to battle the pandemic. Palestine says Israel's treatment of Palestinian workers under the threat of the coronavirus pandemic is racist and inhumane. Government spokesperson Ibrahim Milhem called on Palestinian workers not to go to work in the occupied West Bank. Earlier, Israeli officials threw a COVID-19 positive Palestinian worker on the roadside despite his critical condition. The worker later was transferred to a special center in the West Bank by paramedics of the Palestinian Red Cross. The Palestinian government called on Israel to ensure humanitarian conditions for around 50,000 citizens. Saudi Arabia's King Salman will chair an extraordinary virtual summit of the Group of 20 Major Economies tomorrow. In a statement, officials said the emergency meeting was called to discuss a global response to the coronavirus pandemic. The statement said King Salman will discuss the outbreak's impact on humans and the economy. World leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin, will attend the summit. Leaders from other affected countries, including Spain, Jordan, Singapore, and Switzerland, will also join G20 members. Last week, Saudi Arabia called for the virtual summit following criticism that the group has been slow to address the global crisis. In India, protesters against the Citizenship Act have vowed to carry on their fight despite being forcefully removed from demonstration sites. Yesterday, Indian authorities uprooted sit-in sites in Shaheen Bagh, Jafarabad, and Jamia Millia in the capital Delhi. Speaking to media, protesters said they would continue their sit-ins in full force after the coronavirus pandemic is controlled. Shaheen Bagh organizers said since the outbreak of the coronavirus, the protest was ongoing symbolically. They said police promised not to destroy the sit-in during the curfew, but they went back on it and ended it with force. They said this action by authorities will further intensify the protest and may lead to agitation in the area. Former Chief Minister of Occupied Kashmir Mehbooba Mufti has urged the Indian government to release young Kashmiris. India has arrested around 13,000 minors from the valley for protesting against the revocation of Article 370 on August 5th last year. In a tweet, Mufti said trauma for those boys' families, especially due to the COVID-19 outbreak, is unimaginable. The former chief minister said the young boys have been shifted in jails across India, increasing the anxiety for their families. Meanwhile, Mufti's daughter said there are reports that her mother will be released from detention soon. The valley is reeling under Indian curfew and communications blackout for the last 234 days. I'll be back after this break with plenty more news. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The U.S. Senate and White House officials have reached a deal over the $2 trillion coronavirus aid package. White House official Eric Uland confirmed the agreement on the massive economic stimulus bill after days of negotiations. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said the upper house will vote on the bill on Wednesday. The package is expected to include a $500 billion fund for hard-hit industries and direct payments of up to $3,000 to millions of U.S. families. It also allocates $350 billion for small business loans, $250 billion in unemployment aid, and $75 billion for hospitals. The money in the legislation exceeds what the U.S. spends on national defense, scientific research, highway construction, and other discretionary programs. Pakistan has sought clarity from the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation over the administration and utilization of its COVID-19 emergency fund. Said during the March 15th SAARC conference, the rules regarding the administration and utilization of funds are yet to be shared. Speaking to his Bangladeshi counterpart, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has asked for funds to be placed under the SAARC Secretary General. Qureshi said the modalities for its utilization should be finalized through consultations at the earliest. He expressed Pakistan's readiness to host SAARC Health Ministers' Conference to enhance cooperation. He proposed a video conference should be organized first in view of the prevailing situation of the pandemic. Teenage climate activist Greta Thunberg says she has recovered from a suspected novel coronavirus infection. Thunberg detailed her experience in a post on social media platform Instagram. Thunberg said she went into self-isolation 2 weeks ago after returning from a trip around Central Europe. She described developing symptoms alongside her father about 10 days ago as she felt tired, had shivers, developed a sore throat and cough. The Fridays for Future Movement's founder said despite having symptoms, she was not tested for the virus. Thunberg said it was extremely likely that she had contracted the virus given the combined symptoms and circumstances. Amidst the global pandemic, Thunberg's climate activists have taken their weekly actions digital, using the Twitter hashtag #ClimateStrikeOnline. Well, the new coronavirus pandemic has postponed or cancelled a number of events and celebrations all around the world. But birthdays are supposedly events that can neither be delayed nor called off. We'll tell you now how children are managing to celebrate their days in this report.
When a preschooler Harry was told his birthday party would be cancelled due to coronavirus lockdown, a London-based drama group came to the rescue. With an online alternative, Harry got his frozen celebration with all his friends and family watching via multi-screen, and he even had a happy birthday sung to him in unison.
Happy birthday. Normal parties are at somewhere else, not at home, but if there's germs crawling around, you can't go outside, so we have to stay indoors.
Entertainers and actors Jessica Kingsley and Joshua Diffley of Magical Quest dressed as characters from the classy Disney family. Both were thrilled at the success of the new video chat-based celebration.
They weren't as distracted because when you're at a party there are balloons and things happening all around, but they were really focused. I guess they're very used to looking at their screens.
Yes.
Goggle vision, but it was like they were really focused on us. It did feel really like performing. It was performing. It was performing.
I don't know what you were doing. I was definitely performing.
Harry's parents says they just did not manage to have a party, but it was so special that no one has ever done that before. When a preschooler...
Well, the global economy has been projected to contract 1.5% in 2020 due to the massive impact of the ongoing COVID-19 outbreak. In a report, the Institute of International Finance doubts the possibility of consumer and investment activity rebounding quickly once quarantines are lifted.
The report says spreading pandemic, OPEC price war, and mounting credit stress in markets are reshaping the foundations of global economy. It says the partial economic shutdown can cost Germany up to nearly 21% of GDP. Meanwhile, Lebanon has decided to stop paying all Eurobonds in US dollars. The EU has announced to give 20 million euros in humanitarian aid to Iran, reeling under US sanctions, and is one of the worst hits of pandemic. The bloc's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell says EU has also agreed to back requests made by Iran and Venezuela for IMF financial support. South Korea has doubled its economic rescue package to $80 billion to save companies, stocks and bond markets. Thailand has also approved additional stimulus measures of over $3 billion in a bid to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 pandemic.
European markets are trading higher after U.S. senators agreed to approve a massive economic rescue bill unlocking $2 trillion worth of funds. London's FTSE 100 is trading over 3.5% higher. CAC 40 in Paris has gained over 3%. Frankfurt's DAX has surged over 3%. Engineering multinational ThyssenKrupp AG stocks jumped over 22%. In Asia, Nikkei 225 led the gains, closing over 8% higher after index heavyweight fast retailing stocks jumped about 9%. Seoul's Kospi gained about 6%, while the Shanghai Composite has gained over 2%. Meanwhile, international benchmark Brent crude oil prices have surged over 1%. World Athletics chief Sebastian Coe says next year's championships in Oregon could be delayed to 2022. Coe says the event might be shifted ahead to accommodate the Olympic Games, which have been postponed till next year. The International Olympic Committee postponed the 2020 Tokyo Games until the summer of 2021 amid the new coronavirus. This report has more.
2020 Tokyo Olympics are the biggest sporting domino to fall as the novel coronavirus pandemic rips through the globe. The Olympics countdown clock in front of Tokyo Station was stopped in the wake of the decision. Japan's Olympic Committee President Yoshiro Yamashita said the decision came quicker than he had expected. Yamashita urged the global supporting community to make sure the event was a success after the inevitable one-year delay.
Let's unite together, keep our hearts close, so that people around the world will say that the Olympics hosted in Japan is amazing, and despite the postponement, they did really good work. With the help of many people, we want to work hard to make the Olympics happen.
The pressure was mounting on the International Olympic Committee as the governing body took its time with taking a seemingly inevitable decision. In the aftermath of decision, Global Olympic Committee has reacted with relief, sadness and mainly goodwill. Britain's swimmer and Olympic champion Adam Peaty said the athletes can breathe easy after IOC's decision to call off the mega event.
With the IOC decision, I think a lot of athletes now can kind of breathe. We felt under pressure to train, we felt under pressure to compete. Because obviously Olympics is a few months away, we need to obviously kind of train ourselves and not detrain. And some athletes will go into kind of those facilities and put other people at risk.
The postponement is the first such delay in the game's 124-year modern history. Earlier in the 1940s, the event was cancelled twice due to the second.
All right, I'll be back in just a few moments with the weather. There you have it. You're all caught up. Of course, for the latest on these stories and others, you can always follow us on our social media at indusdotnews. Thanks for watching.